So one of the biggest questions that we get here is, what is microblading? What is ombre powder? Is it the same thing? Is there different things? And the reason I wanted to do this video was to explain to you what the difference was. So I'm a visual learner, so that's why I wanted to show you guys the tools that we use for microblading. What you use is literally a tiny little blade on a pen-like tool. And then for ombre powder is machine work. We use an actual machine with a needle. And how I want to start explaining to this so it really makes sense for you is that what we do with microblading is you have a little blade on this, and what you're going is you're going into the skin and you're cutting and you're slicing the skin open. That's really what it is. It's a hair-like incision that you're doing in the skin to make it look like a hair stroke, and what you're adding is pigment onto there. Okay, now as you can tell just by the way that I'm describing it, you're carving and you're slicing the skin. So yes, it is more painful than ombre powder. You would think that this hurts more, but it actually doesn't, because what you're using here is like a little knife, a little blade to cut and open the skin. So you do anywhere from 100 to even up to 200 strokes per brow when you're doing microblading. So what happens with this is that you're feeling it a lot. You're also bleeding a lot because it's so invasive, since you're cutting, you're slicing the skin open. And that's one of the reasons why I don't like microblading, and I no longer offer it here at the studio. Microblading is one of the first things that I started offering, and for that reason, I stopped offering it. Number one is the pain. Number two is the results. So why? One, microblading looks beautiful once you get it done right away. Like once you get it done right away, it really does look like hair. It looks beautiful, but that only lasts about a week or so while you go through your healing process. Once you go through your healing process, what happens is that you create a new layer of skin on top of that. You have a scab, the scab falls off. Once the scab falls off, you're still going to have gaps in your brows. And a lot of people think that microblading looks more natural, but it actually doesn't, because of the following. Whenever you're working on a brow, like I mentioned, you're doing between 100 and 200 strokes per brow. So what happens is, since you're cutting and you're slicing the skin open, what happens is whenever we are making each little stroke, we're going to have different pressure points. So I'm going to do some strokes that are lighter. And as I get to certain areas where it's more angled, like the arch or the tail, I might go deeper. It's nothing that we can control because we're humans, we are not robots. So what happens with that is that every single stroke is going to have a different pressure point. So some are going to be lighter in the dermis, some are going to be middle ground, which are like perfect, and then some are going to be really deep. The ones that are deep are going to blur, and they're going to just pretty much open up, and that's when it loses the sharpness of the hair-like stroke and it just looks like a blob. Then if you put them too close together, what's going to happen is those strokes that are too close together, when they heal, they're going to blob together. And the ones that are too light, or the ones that we did too surface level, those are going to go away completely. So you're still going to have gaps on your brows. And that is why the results long term don't last long. And with microblading, you need to do a touch up at least 3 to 4 times a year to keep them looking decent. And in my opinion, they don't even look decent because in the future they all blob together and you need to do a powder brow on top of it anyways. So we're trying to avoid your skin of going through that trauma and just go straight into something that has better results. It lasts longer, it's less painful, and it's less invasive, and it's just all around better for the skin. So with ombre powder brows, so what we use is a machine like this. As you can tell, it's very different than a machine that's used for a regular body tattoo. And the needles that we use are completely different. So these needles, as you can see, well, you can't see from there, but it's a tiny little needle as thick as an acupuncture needle. So you guys can have a visual of how thin and tiny it is. And what that needle does is just goes up and down really, really fast. And what we're doing is we're just lightly scratching the surface of the skin. So we're not cutting, going through it, ripping it, carving it. We're lightly, it's like a brush-like motion that we're going on top. And we're just building that pigment in layers by scratching that skin, okay? So that's why the results last much longer, because we're building it in layers and you have a full brow versus having individual hair strokes. Ombre powder can be done as natural as you want, or it can be done as glam as you want. And that's what I love about it. You can really go either way. And that's why all around is a much better service. So it doesn't hurt because you just feel a light little scratching on your skin. It lasts much longer. And clients love the results. At first, they look a little bit more glam because you'll see them at first when you get them done, they're a little dark, but they get 30 to 50% lighter, and that's when they look very powdery, very natural, and very pretty. So that's pretty much the biggest differences between ombre powder and microblading, and why here at All My Brows we only do ombre powder. And I think that's it. Let me know if you guys have any additional questions.